Hello, everyone. It's Miles Reynolds coming, starting this podcast today with a special guest, and it's actually somebody that's near and dear to my heart because he actually was a friend of mine when I very first started my own pickleball journey, and his name is Bill Bratley. And just wanted to ask you, Bill, if you don't mind introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit about I know you have a pickleball presence here in Vegas, and just a little bit about you.
Sure. I was a tennis player for 40 years, and in 1989, I built a sports court in my backyard. But that's back when we had wood paddles and a strap that went around your wrist, didn't know the rules. So we used it a lot more for half-court basketball than we did pickleball because we didn't know the rules. But I switched over from 40 years of tennis to pickleball 12 years ago. And from the day I tried pickleball indoors in Seattle, outdoors is a little tougher in Seattle. I love the sport, and like I said, I quit 2 clubs in tennis and switched over and never went back. Went to my first tournament, and I think I came in second place as a 4-5 player. And the next year I came back and won, and the next year I came back and won again. Singles, not singles, sorry, mixed doubles and doubles. I'm not a singles player. And then they made me a 5-0, which I complained. I said, I'm too old to be a 5-0. You need to have 6-0s. And back then they didn't have 6-0s. Today they do have 6-0 pros. We didn't have pros back then. We haven't had pros for about 5 years now. So the sport has grown tremendously in the last couple of years. So I started teaching 5 years ago. I'm really good at the entry level teaching. Although I'm certified to teach all the way up to pro, which not everybody can do that. And I really enjoy teaching. I don't have as much time because I'm at a exclusive private club here working full time. But I do get out in Vegas and have a few clients still that still need some help with their game. So I think that covers it. Yeah.
Yeah, and where are you from?
Las Vegas. I live in Summerlin, and then I teach and work in Summerlin.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I know when I first reached out to you, so I've been doing, pickleball sport or, sports construction for 17 years here in Vegas. And I remember when I first came across the sport, I'm like, wow, looks like a really fun sport. And it looks like it's a sport where it's just, it's like mini tennis where you just don't have to run as much. So I bet it's pretty easy. And I thought it was for people that were older and just had retired from tennis, until I actually got on a court with somebody, and I remember it vividly. I mean, I think they were, when I played, I think, they were probably in their later 70s, and I got on the court with them, and I think I got pickled. I think it was 11-0, and I'm like, I just got smoked right off the court. And it kind of reminded me, because I grew up and my dad always played racquetball, and I thought, oh, my dad's older, I'm just going to get out there and I'm going to run, I'll just out hustle him, outplay him. And he would just kill it. I mean, he had me running like a dog. So that's when I started to ask around, and I'm like, oh, I know what it was. It was I was ordered a paddle, and I asked Vicky with Paddle Tech. I said, hey, who gives lessons? I want to find somebody that can help me get to at least to where I can compete. And I reached out to Vicky, and she gave me your number, and I actually took lessons from Bill. So it was really awesome. I mean, everything from, even when I showed up, I remember even down to how I was holding the paddle. You were like, hey, we gotta switch that. So it's awesome, and it definitely got me to where I can at least compete. However, I'm still I'm still walking into some matches where I just get blown off the court. But anyway, it's awesome. So what would you say, Bill?
I introduced a game to you called skinny singles. We invented that over 10 years ago. Even though we played a little different today than what we invented years ago. So we only play half court. We serve in the half court and play in the half court. And I remember playing against you, and I think you absolutely love that game because you have no partner. It's all between you and the pro. Yeah. And I can put the ball and stretch you and make you try to get hard shots, but I don't try to kill you. And then if any of my students say, hey, I want to play you singles, I say, you don't want to play me singles. I
Yeah.
said, why? Because I'm not going to be nice to you.
Yeah.
When I'm on the singles court, I want you off the court. I don't want to play any more singles. I love doubles. I don't love singles. So
Yeah.
I can be really nice to you in doubles or skinny doubles, but in singles, like, get them off the court. 11-0. Well, that's perfect for me.
Yeah. Well, and touching on that note, I mean, you even mentioned it when we were talking before we got on, was that they're kind of entirely two different games, right? Singles and doubles. I mean, can you give some insight with that as far as with pickleball?
Yeah. Yeah, doubles is so easy. It's basically serve, stay back, and then drop the shot into the kitchen, and then come into the kitchen fairly fast. You don't have to run hard, and then you play the kitchen game, the dinking game.
Uh-huh.
The returner just has to return and come in right after the turn because it's a 2 bounce rule. Serving team has to let it bounce one more time. The returning team can just return and come in. So the
Yeah.
game's basically at the net when you're at the high end level. The game's at the net. When you're not at the high end level, the game's sometimes over in the first, the second, third, fourth shot. You don't get to play at the net very much because the point's over too quickly.
Yeah.
But basically in doubles, you can cover most of what you need to do on your side with your partner with one step.
Yeah.
Now, once you get the net, it's a couple steps, sure. But once you're there, it's basically one step in, one step back, one step left, one step right. Unless they lob you, there's really no running anymore because you can, between the two of you, cover the court. So pickleball is 1/4 the size of a tennis doubles court.
Yep.
So there's not a lot right now. Singles is tough because now you've got to have a great serve, you've got to have a great return. You try to push the opponent off the court and run them all over the place and control that net. And controlling that net when you've got people that can pass you to the left, they can pass you to the right, is very difficult to do. That's why I prefer not to play singles.
Yeah. Well, I remember asking you when we were taking some lessons, I'm like, I heard about singles, should I try it? And if I'm remembering right, you said you'd want to pick one or the other because it can actually kind of affect one game. You know, a doubles game could actually, if I started playing singles, could affect my doubles game, correct?
Yes, when you're learning pickleball, it's better to learn doubles because you're going to be stable when you hit the ball. If you are just running around smacking the ball back and forth, and that's a lot of fun in singles, just to smack the ball, but you're not learning any of the techniques. So you really have to learn the doubles game first, because when you're hitting that ball, you can't still be moving unless you're moving towards the ball just a little bit as part of your stroke.
Yeah.
You're not still moving to the right or the left or back. You're stable most of the time when you hit the ball, and just a little movement towards the ball is all you need. And in singles, you're running and swatting at the ball all day long, and you'll never learn how to play doubles.
Yeah.
You'll get good exercise.
Yeah, I played singles.
You'll get great exercise.
I know I played singles once, and I felt like I had run a half marathon. I'm like, I don't know that that's the game for me. But so you definitely recommend starting with doubles, and then if you wanted to progress, you could into singles. Then, correct?
Definitely.
Okay.
Or skinny singles, and that's really doubles on the court. You just don't have a partner. You're just playing half the court. That's the next step, and then singles would be last.
Oh, okay.
And the younger you are, the more you're going to like singles. But it's more serve and return and controlling the net, and you don't have those problems in doubles. Doubles, an average serve is great. An average return, as long as it's deep, is great, and that's all you need. You just need average, and you can play the game.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, and that's when I first started taking lessons with you, and people had told me that you're a pro, and I was like really excited to do it. And I do remember sometimes I'd get a little excited, right? I'd start learning some skills, and I'd start to feel a little bit more confident, and then I would be like, hey, I want you to really turn it on, right? And I remember, I don't know what it is, I don't know if it's your patented trick shot, but I remember you'd always it was almost just a flick of the wrist, and the next thing I know, the ball would be like right in my chest. So it definitely seems like it's more technique than it is necessarily power, right?
It definitely is. My strength is in the fast reactions, not the fast body. I can run in pretty good. Side to side, I'm still pretty slow. But the fast hands really helps you in doubles. So yeah, in doubles, what you want to learn beginning is to keep the ball in play. If you're it's fine to experiment and find your shot, but when you're playing competitively, you want to keep the ball in play, number one. That builds consistency. And number two is put it where they don't want it. That's the hardest thing to teach. they think just hitting the ball over the net's good. Well, hitting the ball over the net, they can slam it at you. You're not going to like pickleball if they keep slamming the ball at you.
Yeah.
And I say, well, you're setting them up. It's not them. It's you. You're the one that's setting the ball. So you got to put the ball where they don't want it. They don't want it below the knees. They don't want it at their feet. You want them to reach for the ball. You want it below the net. So just power to the person where they just have to put up their paddle and smash you is not the secret. So there's a lot of soft game to pickleball that you don't see in any other sport. You master the soft game and the hard game. I just talked to a guy that won a tournament. He said he never smashed the ball. He kept it soft the whole tournament.
Wow,
That's what
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because there's kind of always the big debate, right? Especially from people that convert from tennis over to pickleball, they usually have a really good drive, like the drive game versus the soft game. I mean, is there a comparison there?
Yeah, I actually track that when I'm watching the pros, and Ben John's the best player in the world by far. He drops the ball 90% of the time, and he drives it 10% of the time. But when you drive it, you still have to stay back, because the next shot should be a drop. It shouldn't be a drive. It should be a drop. You chose that first ball to drive it. That's fine. It's exactly where you wanted it. It's a great ball to drive. Just drive it. But stay there, and on the next shot, it's not going to be exactly where you want it. And that way you drop that next shot into the kitchen and come in. So 90-10 is a good way. I'm about, depending on who I'm playing, I'm probably dropping 60% now. I've improved where I'm dropping more than I'm driving. Yeah. The problem with driving is the first one is very difficult for them, because it's at 20, it should be at 22 miles an hour, and that first ball is a little bit hard. But if you keep coming at them at 22 miles an hour, they're going to master it in like 3 or 4 or 5 shots if you keep doing the same shot to them. So you want to mix it up. You don't want to give them the same shot every time. Unless you can get around 27 miles an hour, now that is difficult. Yeah. That's a whole new league. That's where the pros are getting up with a really hard shot. They're around 27, 29 miles an hour. And my best shot, because you got to keep it in, my best shot's about 20, 22. Now, even better would be maybe 16 miles an hour and below the net, where it dips down with a lot of topspin, where they have to pop it up. So you've got the total third shot drop into the kitchen. You've got the hard drive at about 20. I tell my students, if you can't do 20, just keep dropping it until you get up 20 miles an hour. Yeah. And the third one is that little topspin where it loops below the net, and you follow it in, and they have to hit up. So that's a great shot. There's not too many of the pros use that, because they've mastered it. Most important shot in pickleball is the third shot drop. If you don't have it, you can't win. Yeah. Unless your partner has it, and you tell your partner, you take them all. Well, I did that the other day, where I told them, I'm taking every third shot, and I did great until I got tired.
Yeah. So then that way, when
I got tired, I said, okay, now you're back. You can take some of these.
So you could warm me out. You could at least drop it to where you guys could get up to the net, which is awesome. Well, and I've seen
pros do that, where one pro is taking all the third shots, and the other pro basically just runs to the kitchen line. Now that's a dangerous game. You got to really trust the person that's making that drop, that they can't smash you as you're coming in. So I would love to play that game with somebody someday, but I don't have a partner that can drop it in the kitchen that consistently to where you can just go up and attack that kitchen line.
Well, and I think I do like to hear that the soft game is definitely trumps the driving game, because even me getting older now, I mean, it takes a lot of effort. It's not like a tennis ball. The pickleball is so much lighter that it seems like it does take a lot more effort to really put some speed on it. In fact, I remember when you were giving me lessons, you'd be like, hey, that's 22 miles an hour, or you'd tell me kind of the speed. But wouldn't it take a lot more effort with the weight of the ball to get it at a higher speed, or is that not the case?
You've got to use a lot of wrist. Yeah. And that's dangerous. That's a small court. If you hit it a foot and a half above the net at 22 miles an hour, it's not coming down. So you've got to keep it under a foot above the net for it to hit the baseline if they let it go. So you don't want to smash it at them and just have them step to the side and go, yeah, Bill hit it out again. There he goes again. He hit it out again.
Yeah. You were mentioning.
Go ahead. I just finished a tournament with the Nevada senior game. Uh-huh. And my partner said, we got gold, which is what I do every year. Unless I'm running the tournament, then that's kind of tough to get gold when you're running the tournament, because my mind is somewhere else. But my partner says, they're coming after you with the dinks. And he said, well, that's good. And I said, not really. You're as good as I am, or maybe better. I don't know. And he says, well, they're coming after you, and you're winning every one. Now,
Yeah.
let me tell you how I won every one.
Yeah, let's
There's
hear
the
it.
secret. I hit the ball over the net 5 times. That's it.
You mean just less errors,
One time
less forced errors?
I kept the ball in play 5 times, and they coughed it up every time. One time I had to hit the ball 6 times, and I got mad. I said, I had to hit the ball 6 times that time. Yeah. So against the teams we were playing, now that's not true. If you're playing a 4-5 or a 5-0, they can hit 20 in a row. That's not an issue. But when you're playing at 4-0 or 3-5, you keep it in play, and they will cough it up after 3, or get anxious and try to slam the ball. And that you can't. You got to be patient. You got to know when to slam the ball. So every one of my battles I won just because I kept it in play, not because I was a good dinker. I'll just keep it in play.
Yeah.
I sort of put it where they didn't want it, but I never attacked them. I never went on offense. It was all defense.
Yeah. Well, it's
Here's
interesting.
Here's my turn. Go ahead.
Well, I will say you're a great player, and I think it's probably the same way when I've even I've learned with pickleball. It's never about age or weight or gender or any of those things. It comes down to the technicalities and who's going to be more patient. And I remember there's a few times, like I said, you definitely got that flick of the wrist down to where you can really put it where you want to put it. You were mentioning, when you go out around town or you're wearing some kind of a pickleball gear, you mind sharing kind of what you're talking to me about?
I just took a vacation to Mexico, and a lot of people came up to me and said, "Oh, pickleball, yeah, I know somebody who just started playing pickleball and they love it."
Yeah. So like everybody knows somebody that's just started it, right?
It is so easy to learn. It's a lot of fun. The money is next to nothing, and we're playing on 3 courts with a $2 ball. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
What do you recommend? Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, compared to tennis, a lot of the tennis pros that also teach pickleball, like Mark Swanson at TCP or in Vegas, wrote an article about students that come to him at any age and say, I want to learn tennis. He said, that's great. So do you have 3-4 days a week, 2-3 hours a day to put into tennis? And they go, well, that's a big commitment. He says, why don't you try pickleball? Pickleball's a lot easier to learn. Like I say, it's about maybe 5 to 10 lessons to learn all of the basics of strategy and shots in pickleball. So it's not like tennis, where to get up to the next level in tennis, it could take 3-4 years to get up there.
Yeah.
And a lot of commitment and a lot of cost too. So it's just, I think it can be the perfect sport.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so as far as for a beginner, if you were just starting out, what would you recommend as far as like kind of step by step? What would you do if you're like, hey, I've heard about pickleball, and they want to get good at it?
Well, I follow 4 people because I watch the pros on a regular basis in their tournaments. I follow 4 people on YouTube, and they're teaching technique. And I learn something every time, even though I've been teaching 5 years. I learned something. I was watching Ben Johns, and I teach people not to cross over on dinking at the net. Sure, if it's a forehand or a backhand, you cross your foot over like tennis, that's fine. To develop some power and move into the ball, that's great. That's what you want to do if you can. But at the net, you don't want to close yourself off like that. I noticed Ben Johns does it halfway, not very often. He does it traditionally perfectly every time, but every once in a while, he'll bring that other foot over halfway and still hit the shot. So I'm going to change my teaching with my students and go, as long as that foot's not totally over to the other side. So when you're hitting a backhand at the dink, your left foot's the one that's moving. Your right foot is planted. Okay. But he brings that right foot over halfway, or not even halfway, and still makes a great shot. So yeah, my advice is to watch the YouTube videos that are training, and then watch the pros certainly. Yeah. But watch the best trainers out there on YouTube, and you will learn a lot. Yeah. Because you don't want to start with the wrong grip. You don't want to start with just smacking the ball. Yeah. And running around and having a lot of fun. And it's like, yeah, I enjoy this. I get a lot of exercise. You'll never get any better. That's fine. You don't have to get better.
Are there certain ones you recommend, or just to throw some out there? As
Oh,
far
I just taught with Tyson McGuffin, who's also he's probably the third best doubles player and maybe second best singles player in the world. He's out of he works with Selkirk. He's their big pro,
okay.
and he does camps all over the United States. He was just here for the big tournament at Darling Tennis Center,
Oh, you were
and we
working
taught.
with him when he was here?
Well, we did 55 kids. Then
Okay.
we had quite a few teachers there to help with the 55 kids.
Yep.
So his website is fantastic for his training.
Uh-huh.
Pickleball Kitchen, I've been following him for years. Pickleball Kitchen.
Yep.
Simone's pretty good. Jardim is pretty good. I
Uh-huh.
learned how to do an overhead, even though I'm a tennis player. I know overhead, but I didn't know how to teach it. So I learned a lot from her on the techniques of how to teach the overhead drive smash.
Yeah.
And Bjornis, he just moved, I think, California. He's fantastic. So those are the four I follow.
Awesome. No, I mean, right when you
Yeah,
said it,
they
I'm
are.
like, I want to know what the four are. If you're following them, I want to know who they are. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, and there's a new one. There is a new one. I've got a fifth one now. He always goes by his duper rating, and he's fantastic. He's fairly new to pickleball. He's got a duper rating of like 6.3 or something. It's like, well, I got a lot of respect for a guy that can get his ratings up there that high, and his training is excellent, absolutely excellent. I've never seen him say anything that I would disagree with.
Oh, that's awesome. And then as far as like, as far as like some of as far as like the history, right, of pickleball. I know we were talking earlier, and I was just saying that you obviously you deal with a lot of different players at a lot of different levels that you're working with and teaching. But what are some of those conversations you had? I think one of them you said that a lot of people ask about the history of the game, right? Like that they think it just started. The pickleball.
Well, everybody's fascinated by the name, and the theory is, and I could ask my friend who actually owns the property where the original court is, who was one of the first players to play the game. His name is Scott Stover. He lives in Bainbridge Island, just out a ferry ride out of Seattle. People come from all over the world to see the original pickleball court. Now, it's not much. It was just a badminton court, asphalt, I believe, in the backyard. No fences, no lights. But people come from all over the world to see that court. But the theory is that the dog would pick up the ball, and the dog's name was Pickle. Now, nobody's ever said that's not true, so I assume it probably is true.
Yeah.
That was 1965, Bainbridge Island. That was Joe Pritchard, Barney, and Bill, and that was the first court, and they invented the rules. And like I say, Scott went to the first tournament. It was a minor tournament. Of course, it had to be in Seattle because that was the birthplace.
Yeah.
And they won the first tournament. I know the people they bought that they won, and they knew the importance of that third shot drop. It wasn't a driving game. It was like, we just got to drop them in the kit, get them in the kitchen, we'll beat them up there, and it worked beautifully.
So even when it started, they realized the value of the third shot drop.
They invented the rules. They knew how important that was. Yeah,
Wow.
They took full advantage of it in that first tournament.
And
now,
when was that?
There.
What year was that it started?
That was about 1970.
Okay.
So it invented in 65, and so Scott would go over there. I went to school with Scott. He would go over there in the summers, and that was their summer home over there with his sister. And they would make up. And you need four for doubles, so that would make up the 4 or 5, whatever, to play pickleball in the summer.
Yeah.
And then Bill, I believe it was Bill or Barney, invented the first paddle. They just took scrap wood out of Boeing. One of them worked at Boeing. Joe Pritchard was a congressman, but so was either Bill or Barney, and built the first paddle. And then the guy that lost that first tournament, his dad actually built the first composite paddle that we basically still use, not gearbox, but the rest of the paddles are basically that same composite type of paddle where it's pretty much hollow inside or cardboard type of look inside. And they didn't patent it. So when Barney realized, you're taking off on my design, it's like, no, you didn't patent it. So nothing about pickleball was ever patented or trademarked that I know of.
Wow.
Which really opened up the sport.
Yeah.
So now they were all recognized at the U.S. Open years ago. All 3 of them have passed away. Scott's still doing fine. He's my age, so he's still doing fine. But the original 3 owners, inventors, have all passed away. but they
Wow.
were all recognized. They were all recognized before. Now I lived in Magnolia in Seattle, where the second court was built. I never saw it,
Hmm.
and a friend of mine never told me about pickleball. So here he is, my friend, and he's playing pickleball. He never told me about it. It was like this little silly little game that they invented.
Yeah.
And I think there was a beach game that it kind of resembled also.
Well, it's
There's a
interesting
beach
because
paddle game.
I've been here in Vegas. We've been doing sports construction for over 17 years here in Vegas. And it's interesting because, every now and then I'd hear about pickleball or another form of some kind of a racket game, but it was never like really high on the radar. And then all of a sudden, within these last few years, it's just like now that's what everybody wants, right? Whether it's commercial, whether it's backyard, it's really what everybody wants. What would you, if you don't mind sharing, like, what do you think why is there such a craze, and do you see it, tapering down anytime soon?
No, I don't see it tapering down at all. It needs to get into junior highs, high school, college, and then the Olympics. And it won't be in the Olympics for at least another 8 years.
Okay.
They're already committed. They're already committed to the sport. But you've got. I think it isn't that beanbag toss game. Isn't that one of the Olympic sports
Is
now?
that cornhole?
I'm sorry, cornhole. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's what I think of the game. It's
Yeah.
silly little bag. Although I did watch it in the Olympics, I was actually kind of fascinated by seeing it. But so we've got a long ways to go. And then as far as the pro sports, now you say I'm a pro. I'm only a teaching pro. I'm too old to be a senior pro. Senior
Okay.
pro is 50. So if you're 50 to 60, you'll do well in the senior pros. If you're over 60, good luck, because it's really tough with
Well,
those 50-year-olds coming in.
Well, I'm going to say all around pro, because every time I know I still can't hardly get a point on you. So that makes me feel better if I say that too. You know,
I am getting a lot better, but everybody's getting a lot better than me. It's like, wow, but they're younger, so that's okay.
yeah. Well, I know we talked about it. There's so many avenues to play. Obviously, we're building a lot of courts, and a lot of other courts are going up around the valley. I know you even mentioned at the plaza that they even have like a pickleball vacation package now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's fairly new. It's not going to be available until November, but we're going to be advertising worldwide. We already at the Plaza have recognition for being one of the top 10 resorts in the world to play pickleball, to come in and play pickleball and learn pickleball. So we're going to take full advantage. They just redid all of their courts. They've had pro tournaments there, $25,000 prize money. So they were the first one in Vegas to offer prize money for the pros.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that needs to grow in the pro sports, not just the Olympics. The prize money has got to double and triple like it does in other sports. So
Yeah.
there's the top 10 are doing okay. The top one is doing fantastic, Ben Johns.
Hmm.
But I'd like to see the top 10 be doing as well as Ben Johns is, with endorsements and prize money and everything.
Yeah. No,
'Cause
I know. Oh, go ahead.
They're out there every weekend playing hard.
Yeah.
And the prize money might be, for a doubles team, it might be $4,000 each. So
Wow.
that's not a lot of money to all of that effort, but
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that's when I told you, I'm like, hey, I want to get to this level and then to that level. And then you told me the amount of time it takes. I'm like, I actually want to still hang out with my kids too. So we got to find that happy medium. But yeah, the plaza is a really cool place because I know it's like the courts are on the roof. It's a really cool setup. I remember even doing some clinics with you and Steve Cole out there, just because it was like just a chance to learn some different skills and to be around, and just even being around the pickleball community in Vegas was really cool. Now, just to kind of throw this out there too, I know every time I've been around you, I know you still you sell paddles, which I think you're a great resource for paddles. I know a lot of times even you still I think you're able to even allow people to demo them, right?
yeah, I currently have like 15 demos.
Okay.
A lot of Selkirk and a lot of Gearbox.
Okay, so we'll definitely share your information, and I know you're in demand as far as like lessons go. But even if I know we talked about even sharing your number, if it's not a lesson with you, that you can at least point them in the right direction. I know we also talked about if somebody wants to do tournaments, they can go to pickleballtournaments.com, and you really can kind of find your level. Some tournaments are sanctioned, some are just kind of like a little bit, less people, but still a really good time, and you can still find some competition. So, but yeah, we'll definitely, we're sharing that now. But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to kind of share with the pickleball community, especially in Vegas?
Well, do we have enough time? We didn't talk about how to become a player and how to get good. We
Yeah.
talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
So
do we have time?
you know what? I think we're actually going to be able to do it. What I would love to do, because I feel like you're just a fountain of wisdom when it comes to pickleball. I mean, we even didn't even get a chance to get to your tournament stories. What I would love to do is to do that on to have you
Yeah.
back on and
Yeah.
do another podcast, because that's actually the conversation that I've had with my friends is I feel like a lot of us have plateaued. So how do you go to that next level? And I think everybody has an opinion on it. I'd rather hear from somebody like yourself that's been around the game from the beginning, and also you're around a lot of high level players. So yeah, I really
Yeah,
appreciate you being.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here, and everyone remember to like and share and comment on the podcast, and yeah, I would love to have you on here again. I would love to do a lesson, and hopefully I've gotten a little bit better since I first began with you. So thanks again for joining us today.
You bet, Miles. Anytime.
Okay, all right, we'll see you.